So again, welcome. We're super excited to have you today here in session. Our Fill Up Your Cup today is all about tips, tricks, and tools for virtual engagement. And really, we're going to be focusing on the part where you are actually in the meeting. There's a lot that
Mm.
goes into all of these things, but that's what we're really centering and focusing on today, just for the sake of time, so we can really be focused as a group. So before we jump in and before we start with things, I just want to share a little bit about the Population Health Innovation Lab, or PHIL as we call it, so lovingly. If you are not familiar with our organization, we work with multi-sector collaboratives or people who are coming together across sectors, across fields to really implement systems changes. And what we're trying to do, our real mission and vision here is to create opportunities to experiment, to share learning, and to lead lasting change. So thank you for those of you who are joining us today and being part of that mission as you all connect with one another in this space. Next slide, please. As I open up, I just want to respectfully acknowledge that we live and operate on the unceded lands of Indigenous people throughout the U.S. Today, I am working on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Native Hawaiian or Kanaka Maoli people. I encourage you to click the link that we're going to drop into the chat here in just a second to learn more about the native lands on which you are currently. So with that, I'm also going to just share a brief overview of our agenda. So we are going to be opening up here today with sharing a little bit more about the intention of this space and what you can expect from us here. We're also going to spend a moment just to get to know who is in the room with us so that you have a better sense of who is joining. We're going to go over a high level about event success roadmap for virtual events. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different sections of things that happen from the pre-event planning to the actual what happens in the session and then what you do after the session. And today we're really going to focus in on the in-session portion. We'll go over some concepts. And again, the idea here is not to just like blow your minds with all sorts of crazy stuff. We're going to share some really practical tips that we've learned over the last 10 years of convening more than 200 large convenings, small convenings. Again, really working with people across sectors, focusing on building engagement, building connection, problem solving with one another. And then we're going to have some time for you all to connect, to share the lessons you're learning, to hear the things that are really working for you in those spaces. You'll be able to actually also be in a breakout room with folks, and I encourage you not to be fearful of that. I'm sure many of you are not joining this space. There's probably other people helping to curate and facilitate that type of work. And then we'll just have a brief closing. So hopefully you have brought us some fun, warm cup of something with you. I know it's a different time zone for many of you. But as I mentioned up front, our real intention today is just to welcome you into this space. We are so excited to meet new faces, so excited to see others returning from these spaces that we engage in. But the whole point of Fill Up Your Cup is really to bring people together who are navigating this complexity of changing systems and supporting one another in this really hard work. As I mentioned, for the last 10 years, we have been doing this. We do it virtually a lot, especially after in the COVID timeframe. But we also do this in person. And so our hope and goal for today is to really, no matter where you're coming from, whether that's education or the public health sector, whether you're working in some sort of local or state government, is to help you connect with others who are doing this work and to learn new things, share tools, imagine new ideas.
Mm.
Next slide. Before we jump in, I do just want to set us up around this virtual coffee table with some hopes for what we can expect as standards in this space. I see many of you already jumping in with your cameras on. Thank you. It's so lovely to see faces. It really does help with connection. I'm sure many of you know that, but if you're unable to today to turn on your camera, we also understand when life is lifing. That's okay. So don't stress, or if tech goes crazy, we know that sometimes you have to turn it off for bandwidth. But also, as we come into this space, I want to just encourage you to jump right in. Like there is not a perfect moment. There is not a, you sound crazy. Like, you can jump in with whatever you've got during this meeting, and we'd love to hear your voices. We'd love for you to be able to contribute things in the chat. Do feel free to engage with reactions if you so choose. You're welcome to use those as well. But we invite you to just really join with excitement, curiosity, and all of those things. Tech happens sometimes. We'll roll with those glitches if we have them. That's totally okay too. So can you just go back one slide,
Yes, I
please?
will.
Share boldly. Again, we all come from different lived experience and background and have different contexts for how we might be convening with folks. But I encourage you to just share your own experience and to lead with kindness as you do so. Lastly, have fun with this. Like, this is about being together in space and meeting one another, building out your network. So feel free to settle in and just enjoy this conversation. And as I mentioned, as you have things, feel free to put them in the chat.
Mm, mm,
As we jump in, I'm going to just introduce myself. My name is Christina Olson. I use she, her pronouns. I am the director of the Phil Collective at the Population Health Innovation Lab. Just some fun facts for you today on my cafe drink of preference. I don't actually have a lavender matcha latte, sadly, in hand, but I'm hoping you all have some sort of fun something. And then we also would like to introduce our other hosts for today. Who could that be? This
mm,
beautiful conversation is actually also hosted by you. So the whole point of this is not for me to just be consistently and constantly talking at you, but also to have you all in engagement. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put a poll up on the screen so you all can start answering some questions about yourself and to share a little bit more about who is in the room. So if you could just take a moment now and respond to these poll questions. We're just going to ask you to do that. We'll share some results so everybody can see who's in the room. And then if you're comfortable, after you've done that, please feel free to rename yourself with your name and your pronouns and your organization if you'd like.
mm.
All right, we've almost got everybody responding to this poll. I'm going to give it one more second here. Okay. I'm going to end that poll now and just share the results with you all. So you can check this out. We have the largest two groupings of folks are coming from government or public health. So welcome. We also have a fair representation here from the nonprofit sector, a few folks from education, healthcare, for-profit. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How long have you been brewing in the space you selected? Okay, there are several of you who are at the seasoned barista level. Look at you. But there's also a nice mix of folks here that in the years of 10 space, 10 or less years in your specific field. We have all West Coasters that responded, okay, to that question. So others, welcome. I think that we have a lot of registrants from other places too. So no stress if you weren't able to respond. And we have quite a variance here in terms of how often folks are bringing together people in virtual spaces outside of their personal team or organization. Some weekly, others monthly, others on a different cadence other than that. And how are folks showing up today? Okay, most of you are multitasking but listening. The thing we always all face in our virtual settings is definitely the multitasking. So thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate that. I totally understand if that's how you have to be showing up today. And also just want to invite you to feel free to let go of other tasks if you are able to and try to focus in here. But totally understand if you can't do that for the moment.
Mm.
All right. Well, thank you for taking just a moment to share a little bit more about yourself so that others in the room can understand who's here. As I've mentioned, that a virtual event space really has quite a few steps in terms of setting up for success. There is really a lot that goes on in the pre-event space, from clarifying your purpose and objectives to really designing and sharing about the experience that people can expect, to streamlining things like registration or access to events, running through things. And unfortunately, we have even learned that having a security protocol in place is really important. We've had our own experience with a couple Zoom bombings at the Phil team, which is not fun. If you've never experienced that, I hope you don't. But we're not going to go into a lot of details about this today because that is a lot of talking just in that area. There's also the post-event space where you're following up with folks and really being sure to engage with them thoughtfully, but we're also not going to go into that. We have today the real meat and focus is our in-session portion of setting up for engagement success. You will see here on the bottom right, Finn. Finn is our Phil mascot. We like to include Finn when we can, just for fun and levity in our things. So welcome to Finn and the sharing of Finn's ideas here. All right. Next slide, please, Sue. Okay, so as we talk about these in-session components for what you can really focus on to help improve engagement, the first real bucket that I'd like to address is setting the container. And what do I mean when I say setting the container? Well, really, it's about fostering this environment where people feel that engagement is safe and that it is a good thing and that it's an acceptable norm. Part of that is coming into a meeting acting like a human that others would actually want to talk to. I know that sounds very silly, but I think many of these virtual spaces, people come into expecting, okay, there's a professional on the other side that I'm actually not supposed to engage with. I'm just here in listening mode. But if you open up that meeting, immediately letting folks know that you are human, you are welcome to talk to others, maybe even greet other people that you see on the other side of the screen, it just creates a different dynamic and environment for folks to actually better understand. Is this person a professional I shouldn't talk to? Is this person a human that I can connect with? So definitely opening like a human. Next bullet, please. Also, reminding people how and that you welcome engagement is so important. I think we've been slightly conditioned these days into thinking that these are passive, one-way events, and that often you're just supposed to be here in listening mode. However, what we've seen and observed is that we just open up our meetings with this invitation to engage, let folks know where they actually can and do that and how they can do that. I love seeing somebody in here clicking the heart reaction. Like, those kinds of things show that people are listening and that they are actually more in tune than maybe you even realize it otherwise. And thank you for the thumbs up, Mary. I see you too. So, and again, accepting that feedback in a variety of manners is really, really helpful. Next, we have setting a clear purpose and agenda and plans for that event. One of the things that we have heard several times from folks in our own experience, we often used to just open up breakouts and you'd get people running. People would be like, I have to talk to another human on the other side of this camera. So what we've started to do, and at the request of folks, is let them know in the emails up front. You are going to be engaging with folks. The intention is to connect and to really remind people about the power behind that and the purpose and the why. So that we have found has been a really helpful tool in setting up that container where people know what they can expect.
mm,
Next slide. And then also sharing or establishing group norms. As you saw and observed today when you jumped in, I shared a preset list of norms. We typically try to do that, sharing more of a preset thing if we have a short event or if we have a single engagement with a group of people. But what I would highly suggest, especially if you're gathering with a group of folks that is going to be meeting in kind of a continuous manner, is to allow them to set the norms that they expect for that group. There's a lot of different practices that you can engage in. As you see here, some of the practices that we use, and especially one that needs more time, is something like that fourfold practice that gives you more permission to actually invite others into the experience of creating the norms that they expect to see in a space. Next point here. And finally, as I've been trying to illustrate here and how we are engaging, is really set that tone for the type of engagement you'd like to see and really model it. in what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're showing up in this room. Next
mm,
slide. We also have engage early and often. As I've mentioned, that setting that interaction up within the very beginning is super important. We had a poll towards the beginning of this meeting. We asked you all to engage with a link in here. We asked you to share a little bit more about yourself and your organization. And so on the right here, you'll see an energy check. Next slide, next point, Sue. A welcome activity can be super helpful in these spaces. This is something that the one on the right, our Nicolas Cage energy check was something we did at a recent meeting just to see how folks were showing up in the room. People were smiling, laughing. We had a moment where we got to share just where we really were in space on this, and people really appreciated the levity that it brought to the room.
mm,
Sometimes we use a small randomized breakout just around a question that might be related to the learning for the day. But these things can all really just get people primed to actually be in speaking mode with you.
mhm,
Finally, the other one here that can be very, very hard is to give people real time to reflect and to respond. This often can require, especially when people are not used to engaging in this way in a virtual setting, true time for an awkward silence. My team knows that I will literally say in the middle of a meeting when we have awkward silences, I am not afraid of the silence here. And sometimes you do just need to give people actual time to think about what you're saying. People have a willingness to respond. And often what you find is that if you give them enough of a window, people will step into that moment. They will speak up. And again, it's just retraining folks to know that it's normal, it's okay, and it's good to be able to speak in a space.
mm,
All
mm,
right. Another point we have related to our in-session suggestions for making engagement easy is to make participation easy. One of the ways that we do this at Phil is that we vary and we use quite a few different tools for engagement. We also really focus in on making sure that each of our agendas, as I mentioned, there's a whole pre-planning portion of things you really need to pay attention to, has time for folks to learn how to use these tools. And we will showcase if in another slide or so many of the tools that we like to use. But people may not be as familiar with tools, and so you really need to give them that time and bake that into your plans and your agenda so that they feel comfortable engaging. That, along with allowing for different types of tools can create anonymity. It allows you to not just have to respond in a chat where everybody can see what you're sharing. We'll go into a few of those tools in just a moment, but find it very helpful. Another one on the right that you also see here in the picture, we have found that even curating a space where people can find all the links aside from a chat is really helpful. You can open this Zoom doc here using that QR code, and that actually allows you to jump into a space where you can see all the links. You could comment on the end of this. That allows folks to engage in a very different way with the type of content that you're sharing in a meeting.
mm,
Separately, as you're talking about things and you have questions that you want people to respond to, they really need to be specific. We often spend a lot of time crafting questions in our pre-planning phase that we really feel will provide meaningful engagement. And then we write that question on a slide and we also share it in the chat so that people can be sure they know what they're doing and following and tracking what is happening in that meeting. And crafting the right question, it does actually take a little more time than you might imagine.
mhm,
Finally, call out what you're really seeing and reflecting on in a space. You might see folks nodding their heads. It's good to share that with the room. When you have your screen up and you're sharing the screen, often people are not looking at all the others in the room. And so they have no idea what's actually happening for others on the other side of the screen. I, as a facilitator, often find myself toggling between the screen share and between the full view so I can actually get a sense of like how are people enjoying this? Are they engaging? Are they finding like are there, questions on their faces? What's going on? And I will call that out in a room as well and find that very helpful for people.
mhm,
All right, and our last bucket that we have here is design for small moments. Small moments are where we've really seen the best traction in terms of engagement and deep level conversation for people in meetings. Even within our own small organization, we often hear from folks that a room of 8 to 10 people can be intimidating to talk into. And so we have gone into the practice of really trying to focus on small groups where we break people into 3 to 4 and leave them with a set of questions to be able to discuss and to connect with one another. I will say, as I said up front, even in this meeting, people do have hesitation. They get nervous about breaking out into a room. So we provide that context up front. And then we also, as facilitators on the back end, are prepared. We create our breakout rooms, randomize those rooms, but are prepared to shift people around. So you don't leave anybody in a room of two. We've heard that can get very awkward and had some feedback from folks like, oh, the person on my other side of the screen, they like never unmuted themselves. Can you have a minimum of at least 3 people? It really helps to make sure that we have, the right mix of people in a room to at least have an engaging conversation.
mm,
Separately, again, as we mentioned, pre-develop some discussion prompts. Really make sure that you put those into the chat, not just share on your screen, because once you go into a breakout room, as many of you have discovered, you can't see the screen anymore unless you choose to share that screen. We often prefer not to share a screen into a breakout room because that distracts from people being able to engage one-on-one on cameras, which is really nice. So we make sure to put any sort of questions or prompts in the chat so that way people can see what they should be discussing and avoid the whole awkward moment in the room where they say, wait, what are we supposed to be talking about? There is that record in the chat that stays there. Also, we share that there's typically an expectation for the amount of time people are in a room. If you feel so led, you can create and use a timer on the other side. Sometimes we don't actually choose to do that on our end just because we'd like to give more time or less time. We often are checking in with folks. How are things going? Should we extend a minute? Should we not? Just to get a kind of read on what really, really is making sense. And lastly, we often prepare folks in advance to say, hey, select someone in your breakout room. We're going to have an opportunity to share a learning in a sort of harvest after this event. So we try to prime people to be able to continuously, again, share out, not just in the small group, but also pollinate and cross share with those who are in the larger room.
mm, mm,
All right, and I just want to show very briefly at very high level. I'm not going to dive into all of these tools, but these are a variety of tools that we love for our in-session engagement. Many of you, I'm sure, are already familiar with using the chat, using polls, using breakouts. Some of the less familiar things for you may be features like Zoom Whiteboard, which you're about to experience in a moment, where we can crowdsource and brainstorm on ideas. We also like to use Padlet. It's a really helpful external free to you thing that allows you to structure ideas and create collaboration in a very kind of different way. And you can imagine the setup that you want for that and go ahead and create it there. We love using Mural and Miro. These are phenomenal tools for you to be able to do longer facilitated exercises that require lots of steps. They even now have AI synthesis integrated, so you can do mind maps on things, you can build out themes based on the stickies that you have. The one caveat in Mural and Miro is that you need more time. You have to really make sure you have enough time for the setup and instructions for folks and then testing, and then doing the actual work that you plan to do. We love Menti. That's a really fun one for you to be able to build out word clouds in real time, do some more visual pulse checks or polling. And then, as I mentioned, we also love using Zoom Doc for the curation of resources.
mm,
So what I'm going to ask now is for you to pull down the screen. I am actually going to open a Zoom whiteboard for us. And we are going to spend some time connecting with one another briefly here on tips and tricks that you have learned for virtual engagement and tools that you are loving. One thing that I want to point out is in the upper right-hand corner, you will see a box with all of the participants. If you click that drop down, you can turn off collaborator cursors if that is bothering you. You have the option to do the collaborating cursors. You can turn that off. And then what I'm going to ask you to do, oh, let's see. I'm going to ask you all to go ahead and zoom in. What you have to do that is use your pinch in and pinch out if you are using a monitor that has, or if you have a device that has a trackpad. Or if you are using a mouse, you can scroll in or scroll out to zoom and go ahead and in the first top section here, if you have any virtual tool tips or tricks for virtual engagement, use one sticky per thing. And you can go ahead and just click into a sticky and start writing. Document your tip or engagement for others to see. If you instead would like to share a little bit more about a tool for virtual engagement that you're loving, you can go down to that second section in the green, click, go ahead and start typing, and give any context, like we use this to organize whatever it is. I've created a couple examples in the top left-hand corners of both of these blocks. If tech is getting crazy for you today and you're like, this is not my jam, that is okay. Feel free to place things in the chat, but we're going to spend a few minutes now just crowdsourcing some tips, tricks, and tools from the room before we then break out into some small groups. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much for engaging in a Zoom whiteboard. If you've never had the opportunity to use this, this is a feature that's available on the back end of Zoom. It's something that you can use and create for your meetings. We like it when we want to do a quick crowdsourcing for folks. Often, if we want to do a little more in depth and again, do the analysis real time on themes and other things or mind mapping for concepts, we switch over to Mural or Miro. That is the AI components. There are some things available here through the Zoom whiteboard. However, you have to have an upgraded version of Zoom. So just so you know, there are those opportunities to use this tool. We've found that some people love it. I think it's a really nice way to get lots of perspective from voices in the room. And it provides a great artifact for people as well at the end of the meeting. Okay. Well, what I'm going to invite you all to do is just take a moment to look around on this board. We see folks sharing kind of raising the hand functions as like a tip or trick to help people, popular education strategies, fun game icebreakers. There are so many things out there in terms of tools for all of this. Love the Zoom polls with some questions. We use that as well. In terms of tools, I see a ton of things here from YouTube for related content, PowerPoint to redirect participants, Miro for virtual collaboration, all sorts of things. So I would encourage you again to just take a moment to look around on this board. We are going to close it just for the sake of time here. If you haven't had a chance to look at this board, again, I promise you're going to get this in a link after the event. So please feel free to alleviate yourself from losing all this or trying to do a bunch of screenshots. You will get access to this afterward for your own viewing and perusing. But thank you so much for taking a moment to just share some things synchronously with one another on what is working for you. Sue, I'm going to ask you to just pull up the slides here real quick so that we can get some context for our breakout rooms. And again, what I'm going to invite you all to do is to not be fearful. This is an opportunity for you to connect on a challenge that you're experiencing. We prompted you ahead of time saying, we're going to have a moment to really think about challenges that are in this space of virtual engagement. I'm hoping that you've come with something in mind. If you haven't, don't stress. But what is something that's challenging you right now in the virtual events or engagement experience that you might like to share with some colleagues or talk about a little bit more? So we're going to open up these rooms now, ask you to share a little bit about that with whoever is in the room. Feel free to greet yourself, to share who you are, where you're coming from, whatever feels comfortable for you. And then discuss. Feel free to discuss what that's going to look like and what those challenges are. If you have suggestions for a colleague that shared anything, feel free to jump into that. We are going to be in these rooms for about 8 minutes, which isn't a ton of time, but again, trying to respect you in this 45-minute time frame. This is supposed to be a light pause on your day, not a big, long, drawn-out meeting. I'm going to open those rooms now, and you should have at least 4 people per room. If we have some folks jump around, we may move some, and there may be a little bit more. But thank you all for sticking around for this portion of our engagement. We're excited for the conversations to come. All right, those rooms are opening up at the moment, and you should see a ping on your end. Oh, we accidentally created 15-minute timer, but we'll close them at 8 minutes. So apologies on that. Tech was teching with us today. So welcome back. Welcome. I know that that's never enough time and would have loved to have you in those rooms for far longer. If this was a longer event, I certainly would and would encourage you, just as you talk about virtual engagement, not to be afraid to schedule less things and allow more time for connection. It is so important that you're not trying to cram too much in. And I think as facilitators and people bringing people together, you think you often need to have so much earth-shattering content to share, but really there's a lot of content in the room, and you want to leave space for those who are in the room to be those experts and to be able to share that. So as we close out, I'm going to ask you all to just take a moment to consider what you've heard today, and would invite you to share one statement of learning in the chat. Try to start that with I liked, I learned, or I'm planning to try. Just to again connect with your colleagues here, anything you're interested in. We'd love to hear how this event has been for you. So in just a second, we're going to launch a poll as we close out here. But I also just want to thank you for your time and
Mm.
engagement today. My hope this is that this has been just a fun moment to fill up your cup, to connect with some new folks, and we really hope to see you again at another event in the future.
Mhm.
And thank you for those of you who are putting things in the chat. I love hearing what you're learning.
Mhm.
And we're real humans here. We always schedule this for 45 minutes just so people can feel like they don't rush to the next meeting, but we're here. Like, feel free to unmute yourself. This is the official close of our meeting, but you're welcome to stay and chat. I'm going to launch a poll here just to see how your experience has been. We'd love if you could share any feedback with us. We are continuously trying to iterate on these things, and really learn and improve our events for future. So welcome you to participate in that. But otherwise, we're sticking around. This is that water cooler time. We're recreating the moments where you'd actually have genuine connection. So thank you all.
Mm.